Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to discuss about generative AI. So I think you have already heard of something called ChatGPT. Even I think you are already using it in your day-to-day life to solve different kinds of problem. Let's say you are having one issue with your code. You are just giving the code to the ChatGPT and you're asking your ChatGPT just try to fix the code. So it will give you all the information about your code, like which line you got the error, okay, what is the error and how to solve everything it will provide you. So we are not only solving the code, actually, we are also generating text, we are also generating poems, description, everything. Even we can also summarize the text, okay, all kinds of NLP tasks can be performed with the help of ChatGPT, right? And we are also asking lots of question to the ChatGPT. Let's say we don't know any kinds of question. Okay, I will just give the question to the ChatGPT, so it will give me the answer. So this is one of the great application has been developed so far. And if you don't know, this application is based on generative AI, and ChatGPT is nothing but it's a LLM, that means large language model. And if you don't know what is large language model and what is generative AI, so this is the video for you. So from this video itself, you will get each and every idea about generative AI and large language model, like how generative AI is helping us to train these kinds of LLM model. So if I want to give you the basics idea about generative AI, so first of all, I would like to show you one example, and I will try to relate with this with the human philosophy so that you can get the idea, like how human usually learn any new concept and how they are trained with new data. So let's say you are very much interested learning about cats, like what are cats actually, and what kinds of cats are there, okay, in this world. So you want to learn each and everything about the cats. So what I will give you, let's say I will give you 10 different cat books to you. Okay, so you will just read these are the books and you will try to learn about the cats, like how many cats are there, okay, and what kinds of cats are there, like everything you will be learning from the books itself. Now let's say you have read all the 10 books I have given to you. Now let's say you have become one generative model. Okay, now let's say if I ask you any kinds of question about cats, so you would be able to give me the answer, you would be able to give me the response about the cats, right? Any kinds of question I can ask you, right? So that's how actually a human learn any new concept. So they just try to learn anything from the data, and they become one generative model. And if I'm asking anything, okay, to the human, so they would be able to give me the response, okay, with respect to the question I'm asking. Because now they have become one kinds of generative model, they have the generalized power in their mind, okay. But how this mind was trained, it was trained using the data I have given to him, right? Because I have given him, let's say, 10 different books, and he or she read all the 10 different books, and they got entire idea about the cats, okay. Now they can give you any kinds of response, any kinds of answer, okay, from the cats itself. So that's how actually human train with the new data, or let's say with a new topic, okay. So similar concept can be applied in the generative AI. So in generative AI, what we do actually, we try to collect tons of data, and we try to use these are the data to train one LLM model, okay. LLM means like large language model. I'll tell you like what is large language model, okay, and all about. As of now, just consider large language model is nothing but it's a machine learning model. So it takes, let's say, tons of data. So based on that, it tries to learn about the data, and it become one kinds of generative model. So whenever you are asking any kinds of question related to the data, it will give you the response with respect to that. So guys, this was the generative AI idea. So they got inspired from the human philosophy itself. Like if we feed lots of data to the model, so at a time this model would be so powerful, and it can give you any kinds of response, okay, from the data itself you have given. So before jumping into the generative AI, first of all, I would like to clear some doubt, because usually people have these kinds of question, like whether artificial intelligence is different from machine learning, or machine learning is different for deep learning, or let's say generative AI is different from deep learning or not, okay. So it's not like that actually. See, if I consider machine learning, okay, so machine learning is a subfield of artificial intelligence, okay. And if I'm talking about deep learning, so deep learning is the subfield of machine learning. And whenever I'm talking about generative AI, so generative AI is the subfield of deep learning. So whenever we think about any kinds of generative AI application, we usually use all these are the field together, and we try to build these are the system, okay. These are the generative AI application. So here you can see from this image, so machine learning is a subfield of artificial intelligence, deep learning is a subfield of machine learning, and our generative AI is the subfield of deep learning. So whenever I'm talking about machine learning or deep learning, so there are two concepts actually comes in the picture. One is like unsupervised learning and another is like supervised learning. Okay, so I think we all know about like what is a supervised learning and what is unsupervised learning. So whenever I'm considering supervised learning, at a time we have our label data. Label data means we also have our output data. So whenever I'm training any kinds of supervised machine learning model, at that time I need to give input data as well as our output data. So my model will automatically learn the relationship between input and output. And if I'm talking about unsupervised machine learning, so that time actually we don't provide any kinds of output data. We will only give the input data. And there actually some concept would be applied called clustering technique. And using this clustering technique, my model will try to identify my data distribution. Like if you see here, this is the different distribution, this is the different distribution, and this is the different distribution. So based on that, if you're giving any kinds of test data, it will try to calculate the distance between them. So that time my model will try to understand this data point is exist to this cluster itself. Okay, so that's how these two techniques are work. So whenever I'm talking about generative AI uses something called LLM, which is nothing but large language model. So I think you have already heard of something called ChatGPT, then Google Bard, then Meta Llama 2. So these are the large language model. Okay, we call them large language model. So why we call them large language model? Because of the model complexity, because these are the model are very huge. Okay, and this model has been trained with a huge amount of data. Okay, that's why we call them large language model. So guys, here you can see LLM is nothing but it's a large language model and it is trained with huge amount of unstructured data. And what does it mean of this unstructured data? Unstructured data is nothing but it's a data actually without label. Basically, in supervised machine learning I was talking about, we try to train our model with the help of the label itself, right? But it's not possible whenever we are collecting, let's say, huge amount of data. It's not possible to label each and every data points there. Okay, so instead of labeling them, we will feed that unstructured data to the model. Okay, and my model will try to learn the relationship between the data. So whenever I'm talking about machine learning or deep learning, so it is only trained on a specific task. Let's say you want to perform something called sentiment analysis. So you will only build one model for the sentiment analysis. So this model would be only responsible like for giving you like what kinds of sentiment it is. Let's say, so let's say you are giving one input here. So the input is nothing but my experience so far has been fantastic. So as you can see, the sentiment of this text is like positive. Now let's say you are giving another input, the product is okay, I guess. So it kinds of neutral sentiment you can talk about. And there is another input you are giving, let's say your support team is useless. Okay, so this is kinds of negative sentiments user is putting, right? So this model is only responsible to give you this kinds of sentiment analysis output, right? Let's say if you are asking, like, let's say translate this text for me, this model won't be able to do that, because machine learning model or deep learning model can be only trained for a specific task. Okay, now let's say you want to do language translation. At that time, what he will do, he will train another model for the language translation. So what is happening actually, you can't use one model for a variety kinds of tasks. So you need different model for one specific task. Okay, so that is the issue with the machine learning, or let's say deep learning model, right? But what LLM makes so powerful here? Okay, as you can see here, in case LLM, one model can be used for a whole variety of the task. Like you can also do text generation, you can also do chatbot. Okay, you can also do summarization, you can also do translation, you can also do code generation, and so on. What kinds of tasks you can see in the field of natural language processing, you can do anything with this kinds of LLM model. Even you can also generate the image. Nowadays actually we have lots of application, let's say DALL-E 2. Let's say if we are giving any kinds of prompt, it will give me the image with respect to that. Okay, it will generate the image with respect to that. Okay, so using only one model we can perform variety kinds of tasks. Okay, that's why LLM like makes so powerful nowadays, right? So that is why you can tell LLM is the subfield of deep learning, and it has some properties merged with the generative AI. So here actually we are training these kinds of large language model, and we are building like so many application, and we are calling them as generative AI. Okay, so this is the complete idea about generative AI. So as you already know, ChatGPT is a LLM, and it is based on generative AI, because as I already told you, LLM is nothing but it's a large language model, and whatever application we usually build, okay, we call them generative AI application, right? So this is one of the example of the ChatGPT. So guys, what is generative AI in short? So as you can see, generative AI uses LLM to generate new data based on the training sample. And generative model can not only generate text data, it can also generate audio data, video data. Okay, so these are the data it can also generate. So as you can see, this generative AI is a very huge topic. And if I am talking about generative AI, so you have two kinds of generative model. One is like generative image model, and another one is like generative language model. So whenever I'm talking about generative language model, so ChatGPT is the example of generative language model. And whenever I'm talking about like image generation model, like you have DALL-E 2, okay, from OpenAI. So this is generative image model. Okay. Now guys, I already told you generative AI is the subfield of deep learning. So whenever I'm talking about deep learning, so deep learning has two kinds of model. So one is like a discriminative model and another one is like a generative model. So what is discriminative model? So discriminative model is nothing but whenever we are trying to train discriminative model, we also need to provide the label. Let's say this is one dog and cat I'm giving to my model, and I'm also telling the label like this is a cat and this is a dog. Okay, based on that, learning will happen. Then if you are giving any kinds of new data, it will able to predict that one. Okay, but whenever I'm considering generative models, so there actually we don't provide any kinds of output data or label data. We only give like a training sample. Okay, and from the sample itself it will generate completely new data. Okay, for us, if you see here I'm let's say giving kinds of noise data, and using this noise data actually it is trying to generate a completely new data for me. So to get a better understanding, let me give you another example. So guys, here if you see the difference between discriminative model and generative model, so let's say you are trying to train one music model, as you can see, using discriminator model. So basically you are giving music data, so types of music you are giving, and it is just trying to classify whether it's a rock, classical or romantic music. Okay, so here you are also giving the label data. But whenever I'm talking about generative model, so here you are only giving the music data as input, and your generative model, what it is trying to do, it is trying to learn the data pattern, and it is generating completely new music for you. Okay, so what is happening, you are giving some sort of music, okay, some sort of let's say training music, okay, to the model. Your model is learning like how music looks like, okay, how music actually consists, okay, how to let's say generate musics and all. So after that it will generate a completely new music for you. So I think you have heard of like AI has generated music, AI has written a story. Okay, so how it is happening, because using this generative model actually people are generating these kinds of new data, right? So this is the difference between our generative model and discriminative model. So here if you see here, generative AI is a subfield of deep learning, and generative models are trained on huge amount of data. While training a generative model, we don't need to provide label data. It is not possible when we have huge amount of data, so that it is just try to see the relationship between the distribution of the data. As you can see, this is the generative model. It is just try to find the distribution, okay, and relationship between the data, between the unstructured data. In generative AI, we give unstructured data to the LLM model for the training purpose, as you can see, and this is the discriminative model. And whenever I'm talking about discriminative model, here we also try to provide the label as well. Okay. And what is the training process of the generative model? So here, as I already told you, so you will have like huge amount of unstructured data. So you will feed that data to the generative AI model. Your generative AI model will try to learn the pattern and distribution of the unstructured data. Then it will generate a completely new content for you. Okay, so this is all about our generative AI idea. I hope you got it, like what is generative AI and all about, and what is large language model and all about. So we have so many, like you can say, large language model available. So let's say we have I already told you chat GPT is there. Okay, then GPT 3 4 is there. Then we have, let's say, llama 2 is there, Google Palm is there, okay, Google Bard is there, then we have Falcon is there. Okay, so lots of generative so there are lots of large language model are available. If you just search in the internet, you will get all the models. Okay, even if you know Hugging Face, okay, Hugging Face has also these kinds of large language model. We can also use them from Hugging Face. Okay, we have LangChain nowadays. Okay, so using LangChain, actually we can load these at the large language model, and we can build lots of awesome application using this large language model. Even we can fine tune them as well. Okay, so yes guys, this is all about from this video. And if you need any content from generative AI from me, you can let me know what are the content you need from me. I'll try to create a video on that. Okay, so in future we'll be covering lots of things, like how to load these are the LLM model, how to create the application on top of it, even how to fine tune them. Okay, so everything we'll be discussing about. And if you need something from my side, you can let me know in the comment. Okay, I'll try to create that particular video. So yes guys, this is all about from this video, and I hope you got the entire idea, like what is generative AI and all about. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.